Well, as we kick off the week, looking down the road, I think we have multiple chances for snow. And listen, you may have heard that winter is over. We're not going to get much going on. Look at this. This is the snow potential over the next couple of weeks. Multiple chances. And I'm not saying you're going to get a big snow into the cities just yet. We are showing on the long range models at least some storms starting to show up. We've not really seen that too much lately. So I think there are some changes happening. If you're brand new here to the channel, thank you first of all so much for stopping by. A ton of you have come over, and I do appreciate you subscribing. If you're not, if it's your first time, you're going, who are you? I used to be on television. I was a chief meteorologist, but now we're doing these videos here on YouTube. So subscribe, come back, and let's talk about the weather. And listen, we got some new data to go over this evening. I think this is a real interesting thing to watch. This trough that's digging in here into the central United States, and a lot of energy on the southern side of that. That's going to want to just dig that trough even deeper. So the models are now catching on to how strong this energy is as it moves into the Pacific Northwest. So today's weather balloon is starting to sample this energy. We're also, of course, sampling all of this energy upstream, which gives our model data a little more credibility, in my opinion, because you've got actual real data to take into the models versus what you're using that's out over the ocean. You don't have any data on what's going on in the upper level. So I think they're starting to pick up on that, and that's a pretty decent trough, and it starts to go negatively tilted as we head toward Wednesday. And again, I still think that's going to put some snow here into the Appalachians north into parts of Pennsylvania, New York, even into parts of southeast Canada, and it could be heavy at times. So we've got the rain on Monday moving to the northeast, snow in and around the Great Lakes, and some snow showers across the Rockies, and we're quite a bit warmer here across the mid-Atlantic, also the Midwest, as temperatures start to rise above normal, but it's been pretty chilly lately. Take a look at these numbers. In fact, especially across the South, we've been below average by a good 5 to 10 degrees, if not more. Atlanta, Jackson, Nashville, Roanoke, Columbia, just a few cities there. 8 to 10 degrees below average, in some cases even more. Up across the upper Midwest, though, places like Green Bay, Minneapolis, and Flint, other areas in the Midwest, not nearly as cold, although it's been chilly, right? Closer to maybe normal. But Indianapolis down toward Chicago, and that extends into the Tennessee Valley, we've been way below average. Now, in other places, especially across the West here, from Texas all the way into the Rockies, we've been above average over the last couple of weeks. We're getting cold, though, now into the mountains with some snow showers here. This is all part of that energy that's diving to the east heading into Tuesday. Showers still here across the east, maybe some ice here into the northeast and some snow here into southeast Canada. And then we're going to see our next system start to dive in from the northwest. That's going to bring a few light snow showers here to parts of North Dakota, Montana, some really cold Arctic air pouring in as well. That's going to create the lake effect snow too, heading into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. This is where things get really interesting as we head into the day Wednesday, as our energy combines here off the coast with some moisture. And listen, I don't know if we're going to get this negatively tilted trough here, but the European this afternoon really tries to show that snow developing on the backside of this. The GFS is even more aggressive, which I would argue it typically is. In fact, let's go over to the GFS. I mean, look, this is pretty strong here, showing a strong signal of snow into the Appalachians. That would put some heavy snow here from northeast Tennessee into southwest Virginia, a good chunk of West Virginia into Pennsylvania, and then into New York. It also puts a heavy stripe of snow into parts of central and western New York, not just Buffalo this time. We're talking about Syracuse up toward the northern parts of the state, and then cold air wrapping in behind this storm with heavier snow moving into Canada, and a lot of wind here behind this, bringing in the lake effect snows, and that will stick around for quite some time. Let's look at some of these snow totals. This is probably the most aggressive one I can show you. This is the GFS showing a couple of inches here, maybe even into Bristol, Johnson City, Kingsport. Of course, it's always tough to squeeze snow out there in the valleys, but head up 81 toward Abingdon, dropping off toward Wytheville into the New River Valley, but higher elevations of western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, into southwest Virginia, southern West Virginia, and maybe even down to Charleston. We could get our first decent snow out of this. If we can get cold enough, more snow up into the mountains, though, places like Snowshoe, probably going to see 6+ inches, and that continues off to the northeast into parts of western Maryland, Garrett County, all the way up to, yes, dare I say, if we can cool this thing off, we might get some snow in Pittsburgh this time, and in and around Pittsburgh, too, all the way northeast, up toward Erie, a couple of inches, but what are 3 to 5 inches of snow compared to 3 to 4 feet, right? So not nearly as much snow here, but then it looks like it starts to pick up here across the northern parts of New York. So Syracuse, Rochester, several inches of snow possible out of this, and it could get pretty heavy up here into the Adirondacks, and then as it moves north into Canada, looks like it could be on the heavy side as well. A quick look out west, and then I want to show you the chances for snow that we're going to see not just across the central and eastern U.S., but really kind of everywhere. We're sort of quiet here across the west. We've got our trough in the Rockies. That's keeping us cold, but out along the coast, Temperatures fairly warm here with an onshore flow starting to bring some moisture in by Thursday and Friday. That could put a few rain showers and snow showers into parts of California with more rain and snow into the Pacific Northwest. I think this will be the big storm to watch as we head toward the weekend. That's going to bring a lot of onshore flow, and it's really going to put the rain and snow going into parts of California. At first, snow levels are high, then they start to crash down into the Cascades, all the way down into the Sierra with snow here, and that snow moves into the Intermountain West with more storms on the way. This next storm may actually be a little bit further south, and it's interesting to see this on the West Coast because I think what's happening out here is also going to kind of translate to what we're looking at here on the East Coast too. We've seen this here on several models over the last couple of days with some moisture moving north, some rain, sleet, freezing rain, some snow on the north side of this as we head toward the 13th and the 14th. That would be this upcoming Friday and Saturday with rain south of that all the way down into the deep south. I think this is looking more and more likely. High pressure wedged in here down the East Coast with cool conditions here, some rain showers possible into parts of Florida, and there comes that system into the west, and we're quiet here in the central part of the country. Just a few showers along the Gulf Coast as we head into the weekend, and then that system moves east. We push some snow just north of the Great Lakes into southern parts of Ontario, and then into the northeast once again. And this is where things get kind of interesting. Now, this is the midday run of the GFS on Sunday. There goes your storm toward the Great Lakes, pushing some rain and snow eastward. I don't know that I believe anything on the GFS as we head out over the next 8 to 14 days, but I want to compare this with the European. It's showing some storminess, maybe some mid-Atlantic snows. And do you guys remember somewhere around December 18th, 19th, back around 2008, I think, we had a big storm that moved up out of the Gulf. This doesn't look like that, but you are stormy. You've got your trough here. All it takes is the right ingredients, and you've got your boundary lines here clearly, so we may get a storm out of that. If not, more northwest flow, more storms, and then energy here across Texas. I mean, are we looking at a big storm getting close to Christmas? I doubt it at this point, but listen, it's on the table because the models are starting to pick up on the idea that it stays active. I don't think we're in for a blowtorch across the central and eastern U.S. Okay, just to compare, this is the European. We're going to look at that same time period. As we head toward the weekend, there's that moisture moving north with the wintry mix on the northern side of it, pushing some snow into parts of Canada. High pressure wedging down the east coast. It could be a little tricky here. There may be some freezing rain into parts of Virginia, the Shenandoah Valley, maybe into parts of Pennsylvania and some of the sheltered valleys. I'm not sold that high pressure is going to be strong enough to keep that going here, and then warm air eventually intrudes and wins here. Another system across the west. This is the European, and it really tries to deepen a low as it moves across the central United States. So now we're talking about day 8, day 9, right? Are we really going to see a huge storm spin up the central United States? I don't know that we do, but the fact that we're seeing it is interesting, right? So we'll time all this out. This could be off by 500 miles. It could be here. It could be here. I don't think it's going to be here, but it certainly could shift a little bit further to the east. Nothing is completely set in stone, but the pattern is starting to look a little more friendly to me for some active weather because another piece of energy diving into the southwest by the 18th and the 19th. And I showed you the GFS. It was a little different, right? Had you a storm right here. The European has that energy a little bit further back to the west. Certainly a mid-latitude cyclone developing here, and on the north side of that, that would put some heavy snow up here into the Great Lakes with kind of an odd-looking area of low pressure. I don't buy this at all, but it's kind of weird looking, right? So that just looks odd to me. But the fact that it's picking out a stormy period is interesting. And then look, as we head into the 22nd, 23rd on the European, trying to put down a pre-Christmas snowstorm for you here on the East Coast. I don't buy any of this, but look, this pattern is starting to solidify in my mind. I'm seeing it more and more every time we get a model run. I'm not buying into this exact track, but there's something to be said about multiple runs showing a pretty unsettled pattern. This is the NAM model, the short-range NAM model. Speaking of that first storm, it's starting to come into its zone where it can start to pick up on this. It's not as aggressive with the snow here into Pennsylvania and then into the northeast. So we'll have to see if this actually comes to pass, if we get a decent dump of snow out of this into parts of New York. Because again, it doesn't put as much down into West Virginia, but arguably it's trying to push that snow maybe even further to the east now into Harrisburg, not quite to Albany, but just to the west of that from Binghamton all the way north into the Adirondacks. So that'd be a pretty heavy dump of snow. Let's wait and see on that. All right, let's take the European 3-day snow out. As 3 days go by, their snow is going to go away on your model. So that's why it looks like it's disappearing as we head into next week. But look, there's that one storm that the European showing, trying to show a stripe of snow here from the Central Plains all the way toward the Great Lakes. And then another storm trying to put down a foot plus from parts of Kansas all the way north, straight through Chicago into southern Michigan. Do I believe this? I do not whatsoever. But again, it's the fact that we're looking at this. You got to find that a little bit impressive. A little bit further to the east, we'll show you a bit of a different view on this. There goes that one storm, and then the second one, and then look, the third one, and then the fourth one. So you can kind of see how they're tracking to the east each run a little bit further. And we are seeing storms. To me, December's known for storms. I find this super interesting. I think somebody's going to get dumped on some snow before Christmas. It's long-range forecasting at its best is shoddy, but the idea and the trend to me is that we're turning stormy. And another thing, before I go, I showed you this in a video that I put out earlier. You know, what we're seeing across the Arctic, this is the stratosphere right here. That's what I'm interested in. That stratospheric warming happening, and it starts to move across the pole over toward Alaska as we head into the 23rd and 24th. Again, this is where we are now. A lot of cold air up in the upper levels. That's keeping a good circulation here. Strong polar jet locking the cold air in, and that looks like that's going to take place. And look, it does change. It looks a lot different. When you see that, you usually start to displace that Arctic air. That could mean a cold January, and I'm starting to get on board with that. If I go down with the ship, I go down. I'm like a flounder. You got to flip-flop around. You got to choose a side. I think it's going to be a cold January. That's all I got for now. See ya.